Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar. Franklin D. Roosevelt once famously said, "We cannot always build the future for our youth, but we can build our youth for the future." And for me, this perfectly describes what the MSSC, as the charity behind the Sea Cadets in the UK, seeks to achieve for young people, and indeed, as does the whole of the youth sector. Building our youth for the future has never been more vital than in the uncertain world which we all face today. Sea Cadets engages some 15,000 young people in towns and cities across the UK and from all backgrounds, seeking to deliver adventure that will launch young people for life, helping young people through that most challenging time in their life as they navigate from childhood to adulthood in an overwhelming world at the best of times, gaining confidence, gaining resilience to take on the world and succeed. Now, we've always believed that Sea Cadets has a powerful impact on young people that we work with. The young people and their parents and carers are always telling us about the transformation of Sea Cadets. And our amazing 9,000 volunteers attest it is the witnessing of that impact on young people that keeps them volunteering week in, week out. But in a world that seeks evidence rather than hearsay or anecdote, it's been hard for us to prove that our work really has long-term impact. Well, that was until today, because the My LegaSea multi-generational impact study outlined in the report Launching into Life clearly evidences this positive difference, and in so doing, how Sea Cadets and other similar youth work really does, in the words of Franklin D. Roosevelt, build our youth for the future. Now, shortly, we're going to hear from Anna Spencer, who led the research behind My LegaSea study. Anna is a qualified community and youth worker and an experienced researcher. And she's has been supported in the development of My LegaSea by three notable academics in the youth sector. Tony Jeffs, a prolific author in his own right and an emeritus lecturer in youth and community work at Durham University. And from Goldsmiths College London, Dr. Naomi Thompson, a lecturer in youth and community work, and David Woodger, program convener in BA in community studies. Tony, Naomi and David have hugely helped steer this project. So thank you to Anna and thank you to the three of them. Now, a number of my colleagues have also assisted, too many to mention them all here, from Veronica Nair, our Director of Policy and Young People, to Andrew Weston and Scott Sicklemore in our Policy and Insight team. Today, we're also going to hear from Oliver James and Rita Cobb about their reflections on their time as Sea Cadets. And we'll then draw some conclusions before allowing time for questions. But first, it's a huge honour to introduce the Right Honourable Mrs. Theresa May, MP, and of course, former Prime Minister of the UK, who has very kindly provided a forward to our Launching into Life report and to say a few words today. Mrs. May.
Thank you very much, Martin. Thank you for that introduction. And I'm pleased to be part of this launch event today. As a Member of Parliament, I have seen over the years the value of the cadet groups in my constituency, and particularly the Sea Cadets, of which I'm Maidenhead Sea Cadets, of which I'm now president. What I have seen there is, if you like, the immediate value, which is that coming together, the camaraderie that the young people develop, the team working, the skills that they get to develop as well, and the fun that they have. And I think we should never forget that these are not just developmental opportunities. It's actually a chance to have some fun with the friends that they make within the cadet forces. But today does mark a very important point, as Martin has just said, because it's about the value that those cadet forces and Sea Cadets in particular can bring to the future of a young person's life. I think that quote of building our youth for the future was a great one. It's a great aim to have. I think we should all think of that as we work with volunteer for and support Sea Cadets. And thank you to the MSSC for commissioning this work. It is a really important piece of work, and I think it will indeed not just show the legacy of the Sea Cadets, but will itself have a legacy for the future as we look to develop these cadet forces for the future, understanding the value they bring to young people's lives, to young people's whole life, not just to the time that they spend immediately within the Sea Cadets, is hugely important. And I think will have huge value for those of us who have an interest in ensuring that we are indeed building our youth for the future. What a wonderful aim for us all to have. The Sea Cadets does that, and this research shows that. Thank you to those who commissioned the research and all those who were involved in it.
In 2003 to 2008 at TS Andromeda.
In the late 80s.
Next year will be 40 years as a Sea Cadet.
It structured me and made me different.
I loved the discipline.
It was a family thing. We literally spent every minute together.
Honesty, integrity.
Loyal to the cause, loyal to the people around you.
Self-discipline and teamwork.
Drumming that respect into the kids that I work with now.
Conflict resolution in the group.
Having a can-do attitude.
And it was that camaraderie that we all had. Everybody knew that they had to do a job.
It's those lessons that make the biggest difference to what I do now.
You have to take courage and resilience, commitment, honesty and integrity.
You could cook, you could aim, you could sew badges on.
Yeah, you could.
Polish up boots.
Why do I do that in a certain way? Well, you can trace it all the way back to being a cadet.
It doesn't matter about your race, colour, religion, creed or anything.
I don't ever feel that I'm taken advantage of. The friendships I've made, I can still turn to those people.
Gave you a purpose, gave you a social network.
I don't ever feel that I'm in a position where I'm inferior as a woman.
You can achieve any goals you want in life if you put your mind to it.
So there we were, 3 16-year-olds taking just over a 3-ton motor launch out into a fast-flowing river in the middle of the night. There was a tremendous bang and a cloud of black smoke, and off it went. Vroom, right.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us this morning. I would like to welcome Rita Cobb, former Girls Nautical Training Corps cadet, which merged with the Sea Cadet Corps in 1980. As one of the research participants herself, we were inspired to ask her to say a few words about her experience of being a cadet and how it might have provided lasting change to her life. Rita, the stage is yours.
Thank you. In 1951, I was 17. I lived in a village, Wheatamstead. There was very little for young people. There was no TV, pop music hadn't arrived, no private telephones, radio and cinemas only. Transport was bicycles or the bus. I loved reading, especially adventure stories. A friend told me that travel was better than reading about it, but at that time, even France was too expensive. Margaret heard of the GNTC in St Albans. Would I go with her? What a lovely surprise to learn about the Navy, the sea and sailing. There must have been about 15 of us. Lieutenant Cox was our officer and there was 2 petty officers. We met in our hut and then joined the Sea Cadets on the parade ground for the bugle call and the raising of the Union Jack. Then we had classes, knots and their use, ships and their parts to begin with, and so much more. We went to London for the Trafalgar Day parades and Portsmouth for Navy Days. We had a special trip with just us GNTC to HMS Verulam for a day on board. This has meant dreams of adventuring really came true. In the 1970s, I lived in Jamaica and Japan. If there was a chance of travelling by sea, I did it. A friend worked out a route for me to travel on Japan Inland Sea. There are hundreds of islands, many of them connected by ferry, so staying in guest houses. I had 2 maps, one in English and the other in Japanese. It worked. I think GNTC helped me to work as a member of a crew. I travelled and found doors that have made my life interesting. I would have had a pleasant life in my village, and I'm sure the GNTC showed me the possibilities of other things. When you cannot find a friend or a relation to join you on a venture, go anyway. Then you always have a good choice. I still got this. And my logbook. One of them, anyway. This is at Spithead, the Queen in 1953, just after the coronation, which with the other sea cadets, we went and we were in Trafalgar Square at the coronation. So that is one picture in here. Oops. This is the ships. Our ships at that time. Did you see? Okay. That is British and also Commonwealth ships. I've got several pages of those, and this meant a lot to me, as girls could not go to sea. When I saw this in a magazine, I copied it out, and it is women who went to sea, and it's in the 18th century where girls dressed up as boys and actually joined the Navy. I like that very much. Thank you. So, well, thank you very much.
That's brilliant. Thank you very much, Rita. I would now like to invite Miss Anna Spencer, formerly introduced as an independent researcher commissioned by Sea Cadets, to be the lead researcher and author of the My LegaSea study. Anna.
Hello, I had a sneaky look at the participant list, and it's great to see that there's lots of the former cadets who contributed to the research on this call. So thank you for being here, and thank you for all that you contributed. I was really excited to be part of the My LegaSea project and Sea Cadets' investment in understanding their long-term impact in people's lives. But I had no prior knowledge or experience of Sea Cadets or any other cadet organisation before this research. But it has been my great privilege to learn about the work of this organisation from many former members who have thoroughly convinced me of the significant, long-lasting and still relevant contribution that Sea Cadet makes to the lives of many young people. The past year has been the most disrupted and challenging for young people in recent generations. Now more than ever, young people need adult support and experiences that equip them with resilience, self-motivation, and the ability to adapt in uncertain times. The My LegaSea research found that is exactly what Sea Cadets has done for countless people over the last 80 years. In the last 10 years, the language of impact and outcomes measurement has become commonplace in the youth sector. There have been extensive efforts by many organisations to quantify the value of work with young people and standardise how this is measured and communicated. However, to date, the evaluation and research has focused on short-term impact during the time span of a given intervention. The My LegaSea research project and the Launching into Life report represent a first-of-its-kind inquiry in the youth sector. It's the first multi-generational, long-term impact study of work with young people across the UK and British Isles. My LegaSea also offers valuable insight into the contribution of uniformed youth organisations who are often overlooked in some of the mainstream evaluations of youth impact. My Legacy explicitly explores and evidences the long-term impact Sea Cadets has had on people's adult lives, and it also offers a clear account of the value of youth work over the last 8 decades. My Legacy was open to all former members of Sea Cadets in the UK and British Isles. The primary focus was recruiting a broad spread of ages across different generations. Participants ranged in age from 18 to 92, with most falling somewhere between 20 and 60 years old. The geographic spread in the survey is analogous to the locations of current Sea Cadet units, and the gender profile in the interviews was broadly reflective of the current Sea Cadets demography. In total, 3,032 unique surveys were completed, and 103 people took part in an interview or a focus group. The responses were almost universally good, meaning that the scope of the research is focused on the positive impact of Sea Cadets, due to a lack of contributions conveying any adverse experiences. My Legacy combined 2 approaches to evaluation found in the youth sector at present. The outcomes approach, focusing on measurement against predefined impact indicators, and the values approach, focusing on qualitative evaluation of youth work's process and its impact. But the thing that distinguishes My Legacy from all previous youth impact work is its emphasis on long-term impact evident across multiple generations. In the survey, former Sea Cadets were asked to measure the impact being a cadet had on their life, both during and after their involvement. 95% said that Sea Cadets had a positive long-term impact on their lives. Participants highlighted 4 key areas of impact. These were how Sea Cadets developed their skills and independence, how it improved their ability to cope with challenges, helped progress their careers, and how it contributed to their long-term well-being. These impacts remained constant across different generations. Take independence and skills after leaving Sea Cadets. This graph of decade cohort shows that this long-term impact was acknowledged strongly across several different generations, with a gradual increase in more recent decades. In the qualitative research, the main conclusions related to the way the context, community, and connections offered by Sea Cadets fostered capabilities and confidence in later life that acted as a catalyst for an array of personal and professional achievements. The Launching into Life report focuses on 8 key topics of discussion concerning work with young people, based on the research participants' experience of their time in the Sea Cadets. I'll touch briefly on each of these in turn. Countless participants spoke about the enabling environment created by Sea Cadets and how it had a transformative effect on their lives. They spoke of a yes atmosphere and the can-do attitude, creating opportunities for them often in stark contrast to what they'd experienced elsewhere in life, especially transcending barriers of class or gender. This was largely due to the committed volunteers who serve Sea Cadets. These adults offer consistent support and connection to young people in their formative years. The culture of relational stability in Sea Cadets was repeatedly linked by former cadets to their ability to respond in testing situations, solve complex problems, and keep going in adverse circumstances in later life. Participants spoke of feeling recognised, understood, and encouraged. Over 20 years ago, Jenny wanted to go to university, but her school teacher refused to write a reference. But the commanding officer of Aberystwyth Sea Cadets knew her well and gladly supported her application. This action fundamentally changed the course of Jenny's life. Sea Cadets creates an atmosphere where young people can discover and demonstrate abilities, even when they're overlooked elsewhere. The National Youth Agency recently published a 10-year vision for youth work, committing to young people being safe and secure, treated fairly, and feeling confident and ambitious about their future, while having access to and support from trusted adults capable of safe and effective youth work. This research shows that Sea Cadets is definitely a constant example of this in action. Sea Cadets' empowering educational approaches played a vital role in the social and personal development of young people, particularly those who did not flourish within mainstream schooling. Uniformed youth organisations such as Sea Cadets have long provided alternative educational pathways. Progressive self-education in small groups of peers, supported by adults, distinguishes uniformed youth work such as the Sea Cadets from purely recreational or unstructured activity found elsewhere in the youth sector. Research participants acknowledged the value of practical hands-on learning with clear relevance and application to life, especially education through outdoor adventure, physical activity and experiences that stretch them beyond their comfort zone. Sea Cadets imparted not only skills and knowledge, but a way of learning that resulted in a continued love for education and a strong desire to inspire and support learning in others. Many former Sea Cadets spoke about the positive role of risk when navigated in supportive and safe environments like the real-world adventures of Sea Cadets. Crewing vessels at sea, problem-solving tasks with peers, and overcoming physical endurance challenges within Sea Cadets stretched and tested young people in ways that prepared them to cope with the emotional and physical uncertainties that arise in everyday life. In particular, countless former Sea Cadets spoke of being given the chance to travel independently, both nationally and internationally, an opportunity that would not have been available to many if it were not for the Sea Cadets' practical and financial support. These benefits of being given responsibility highlight the need to reframe risk and appreciate the value of safely supervised, challenging experiences that occur within Sea Cadets. This is a sentiment seldom found in mainstream youth policy and rhetoric, where risk is treated as something to be avoided and synonymous with problematized notions of young people. But on the contrary, my LegaSea found that healthy experiences of risk and challenge gave young people the ability to regulate and manage risk in both adolescence and adulthood and make more constructive life choices. The most frequent and enduring impact in this study was the lifelong friendships and sense of belonging found in Sea Cadets. Reliable relationships with peers and positive adult role models, fostered every week over several years, created connections that remain to this day. This stands in stark contrast to the ever-increasing tide of loneliness found in society and the present preoccupation in the youth sector with short-term interventions lacking emphasis on relationship building. Research participants spoke of companionship and camaraderie fostered through shared experiences with their peers locally, and also the powerful opportunities to meet like-minded young people nationally and internationally, especially at sea. One former cadet shared how, when you're on a vessel in the middle of the ocean with a new group of peers, that close environment and shared sense of challenge causes you to forge firm friendships fast. But Sea Cadets also builds friendships that last. The T.S. Kelly Veteran Band from South Tyneside is a group of friends now in their 60s who reformed their cadet band and meet regularly to play music and catch up. Hello to those of you on the call. The Three Musketeers, who met in King's Lynn Sea Cadets, are now in their 90s, and Ray and John meet every other Wednesday to call their friend Jack, living in Australia, and together they relive their shared memories of Sea Cadets and life since. In 2018, the Prince's Trust found that many young people felt their community did not care about them and that they didn't have any positive adult role models. Yet countless former Sea Cadets remain connected to the adults who supported them in their life, while also volunteering to support the next generation. Courage and confidence cultivated through Sea Cadets enabled former members to navigate their later life with greater resilience, especially during challenging times. Research participants spoke of discovering a sense of themselves, their voice and their identity through Sea Cadets. This was attributed to Sea Cadets' structured environment giving routine, stability and the chance to lead, in contrast to the chaos found elsewhere in young people's lives. Notably, former Sea Cadets spoke of the uniform and hierarchical structure, facilitating equality among young people, irrespective of class, race, gender or age. This notion of the naval traditions as a great leveller among young people challenges some of the existing misconceptions about cadets. Former cadets also shared how adventure experiences promoted self-confidence and the ability to trust others. Linda was a member of the Wood Green Girls Nautical Training Corps in the 1970s. She was deeply inspired by the adventurous female leaders who gave her the opportunity to experience adventure and explore the outdoors. Buoyed by her experiences as a cadet, she went on to tour Europe as a musician, work successfully in technical male-dominated professions, and continue her love of nature, sailing, adventure, and time on the water. Many former female Sea Cadets have gone far and secured firsts for future cohorts of young women, to transcend expectations and limitations that their generation may have placed upon them. The convention of progressing through the ranks in Sea Cadets played a pivotal role in preparing many for working life. This study found immense vocational value in how Sea Cadets enables understanding of organisational structures, prepares people for promotion, and enables them to respect others in roles around them. Former cadets were confident to pursue careers, stood out in recruitment processes, and were undaunted even by the most challenging of occupational contexts because of their time in the cadets. Martin, now in his 30s, was a Sea Cadet in Fishguard. He didn't enjoy school and wasn't a particularly high achiever. However, he was very committed to Sea Cadets. He progressed through the ranks and achieved educational and technical qualifications that enabled his diverse future employment. He has crewed super yachts for the wealthy, piloted search and rescue vessels helping refugees, been a professional diver on film sets, and worked in renewable energy, to name a few. These prospects were available to him because of his Sea Cadets training, equipping him for many different work opportunities. There have been many mainstream youth employability initiatives in the last decade, yet the overall statistics show the extent to which youth unemployment remains a pressing issue. The world of work has only become more uncertain and more unstable for young people in the wake of the global pandemic. Yet, it is the positive long-term impact of Sea Cadet on members' career pathways that has occurred across several generations in this study. And there's been a noticeable increase in more recent generations as the barriers to entering work increased the level of support that young people may have required. So it's organisations like the Sea Cadets who have a proven track record over several generations of improving employment opportunities across the social spectrum. Recent research found that many young people fear that they do not have the skills that they'll need for the future. Yet My LegaSea found that over the last 80 years, Sea Cadets has consistently equipped young people with a wide range of practical skills that they learn not only in theory but also in action that have prepared them for adulthood personally and professionally. This often came through being given responsibility, the opportunity to lead, and to work in teams with peers. The suite of skills acquired varies to suit Sea Cadets' needs and interests because the young people get to choose their own specialisms within the educational offer. What was notable in former Sea Cadets was the confidence that they had to self-initiate and put their learned skills into practice. Brian is now in his 80s, but in his teens, he and his friend designed and built their own canoes. The temperament and technical skills required were a testament to his cadetting experience. This focus and creativity is something that has remained with him throughout his life, as a businessman, as a keen sailor, a loving father, a volunteer on the local lifeboat crew, and an amateur dramatics enthusiast. In evaluations, the most compelling stories are often told long after the event. Through this study, Sea Cadets can evidence the consistent, enduring, positive impact that they've had on people's lives over the last 80 years. This is the value of research that focuses on long-term impact, not just short-term outcomes. And there is a need to continue to progress beyond partial portrayals of impact, to fully consider the extent of the difference being made by youth work interventions beyond the time when they take place. Today, I've shared a few brief snippets of the countless amazing personal stories of how Sea Cadets has benefited the lives of people across the UK and British Isles. Many former cadets commented on how they didn't really realise the extent of the impact the Sea Cadets was having on them until they looked back as an adult, or how they didn't appreciate all the skills they'd picked up until they left and found themselves putting things into practice. And for many who took part in this research, the underlying motivation and why they were willing to take part was the deep gratitude they had for the contribution of Sea Cadets to their life and the difference that it had made. Assessing long-term impact is an investment, and it's one that Sea Cadets chose to make. I hope that the strength of the evidence and the comprehensive understanding that My LegaSea has brought to youth work is an inspiration to the sector and to those in government to support more comprehensive long-term evaluations of the impact of work with young people going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Anna, for your presentation and your role in making this research and its findings possible and visible for us now. I would like to ask Mr. Oliver James, a former Sea Cadet many here and across the world of waterborne sports will know well, to say a few words about his experiences as a cadet and what followed. Mr. Oliver James is also a research participant of this.
Cool. Good morning, everybody. Thank you to the Corps for giving me the opportunity to talk to you all today about my experiences of my time at the Cadets and the huge impact it's had on my life going forwards. In the moment of being a cadet, the key thing I think you're aware of is the fun you're having and the amount of time you're spending doing it. For me, Cadets was every weekend with training, with competition. There'd be an expedition, we'd go to the unit and do maintenance. It filled up weekdays with the usual unit activities. It was just a constant source of activity and fun. It also gives you something in the moment that I think you can really appreciate, which is friends across year groups. In school, you have lots of friends who are exactly like you, from the same age, but through Cadets you can benefit from the shared experience of having role models, having people around you who are that little bit older and can pass on the wisdom of only being that 1 year or 2 years older, which feels incredibly relevant to you at the time. What you're also aware of in the moment of being a cadet, and what certainly hit me, was the sense of responsibility you have to the values of the organisation. When you're part of a national organisation that's existed over many years through generations before you, you have a responsibility to live up to the values of the organisation that you're a part of and the perception that organisation has in society on the basis of those who've been before you. And that really motivates you in the life choices that you make as a young person. And that really shapes you going forwards, the decisions we make as young people and what we then take into our future lives. And it's definitely had a profound impact on the person that I am today. The lessons that I've carried forwards from Cadets are the lessons that I've learned from the people that I've met, in particular the staff who ran the unit, and most noticeably Alex White, who was the member of staff responsible for rowing when I was a cadet. The staff at my unit were not just good at teaching drill or shooting or how to tie a sheep end. They were the very best examples that you could hope to have of what it means to be a good quality person. I'm fortunate enough now to work with young people through sport. I coach on the development pathway for the Olympic rowing team. But I know from my time in Cadets that I've got a responsibility to these young people, that when they finish their journey with me and move on to the next step, they shouldn't just have rowing skills. They should leave my program with some skills that are going to help them be better people. And if I can do half a good job that Alex did with me for my athletes, then I'll consider it a job well done. I think I've long forgotten how to tie a sheep end, unfortunately. But the values of compassion and kindness from staff members have stuck with me and play a big part in my decision making now as I go forward into the rest of my life. And it's very easy for me to look back and see how my life would have been different without Cadets if I hadn't developed the passion for water as a young person. Then I wouldn't have wanted to take up rowing when I got to university. I wouldn't have had the skills and the character to put the challenges of my journey to Rio into perspective and carry on when times got tough without having learned traits and skills and character within the Cadets. Since leaving Cadets, I've been an international athlete. I've worked for a charity in London delivering rowing to young people who wouldn't normally take up the sport. And as mentioned before, I now work as an international coach on the development pathway. I have no idea what I would be doing with my life right now if I hadn't been through Cadets, but I certainly wouldn't be out on the water most days of the week, interacting with young people and having as much fun as I do in my day-to-day life. Thank you again for the opportunity to just share some of my experiences and my impact with you. And I'm now handing back across to Martin.
Well, Well, we've heard from Anna about the findings of the My LegaSea research, and that's been affirmed by the video clip of the participants in the research and the amazing testimonies of Oliver and Rita. The evidence is clear then. But is My LegaSea relevant to the wider youth sector or just to Sea Cadets? Is it relevant to others considering positive intervention to build our youth in the UK for the future? Well, we believe it is. We believe it is highly relevant. You see, as Anna explained, My LegaSea establishes a clear link between structured youth work and long-term benefits in the lives of former members. It shows through the survey that 3,000 former Sea Cadets who participated in that survey said that 95% of them viewed Sea Cadets has had a positive impact on their life. Through life, 80% said Sea Cadets had developed their independence and skills again through their life, and 70% said that Sea Cadets had improved their ability to cope with challenges right the way through adulthood. These are hugely powerful statistics, and they confirm that the intervention like Sea Cadets really is adventure that launches young people for life. Now, drilling down into the My LegaSea research, I think there are 3 additional takeaways for the youth sector. The first is that My LegaSea shows how structured youth work not only benefits the individual, but also benefits the wider community. Structured youth work simply creates a cycle of positive impact. The young person is engaged in the local community week in, week out, as Oliver has explained, developing skills, and those skills developed in the community help them for life. But that also gives the young person a sense of civic responsibility, and that in turn motivates them to give back, utilising their skills to benefit their community. Now, this means the difference made to one individual has potential to cascade down to whole communities over time, and that's particularly relevant to intervention in harder to reach communities, impacting not only the young person but also the community long term. It's no surprise then that a large percentage of the volunteers to structured youth work are former members of those organisations, giving back. And that brings me to my second point. And that's that My LegaSea shows the power of volunteering in structured youth work. Volunteers are an immensely powerful agent. Yes, they deliver the activity, but they don't just deliver the activity. Volunteers are embedded in the organisation and often embedded in their local community, meaning they are often trusted role models for those young people. They're a constant, week in, week out, in the lives of those young people, and therefore they offer structure and security. Now, achieving this without volunteers would be prohibitively expensive. If you just take Sea Cadets, we have 9,000 volunteers, and they incredibly give 4.2 million hours of their time each year. On the median hourly wage, that's an investment of £63 million every year in Sea Cadets. Now, this suggests for me that suggests that greater work might usefully be undertaken on how to unlock the potential of the volunteer workforce for the society as a whole, particularly around particular areas of intervention. So what about tax breaks for employers who allow their employees to volunteer? What about tax breaks for volunteers themselves? Thirdly, My LegaSea shows the effectiveness of an aspirational structure as a way to supercharge engagement of young people. Anna talked about the value of progressing through the ranks. This is so true. All the young people start out the same. All of them wear the same uniform, which is a huge leveller. And they progress only within the organisation by their own achievements. Achievements that they wear on their uniform, on their arm, in terms of rank and in terms of the qualifications they achieve. And they're surrounded by other young people, slightly older or slightly progressed in the organisation from them, who act as aspirational role models that they can look up to and they can engage with and understand about their futures. And simply this mirrors the world of work, that greasy pole that's in the world of work. And indeed, there are 1.4 million young people engaged in uniform youth groups that harness precisely this model, from Scouts to Girl Guiding to Boys Brigade. It's endless. And some, like the Sea Cadets, also heighten this by a link to a real organisation. The Army Cadets do it, the RAF Air Cadets, the Police Cadets, the Fire Cadets. Feeling part of something real, something very grown up, is hugely aspirational. For Sea Cadets, of course, that's the Royal Navy. And 61% of the participants accredited the Sea Cadets as inspiring them to seriously consider a Royal Navy career. Now, 26% actually did, but it's interesting to note that 38% went on to a career across the maritime sector, suggesting that they've been inspired by the activity that they've taken part in. Now, many youth interventions that occur are just weeks. And frankly, the government will often bite off one's arm for interventions that deliver 6 months engagement with young people. We achieve an average of 26 months, and many stay for 4 or 5 years. And the longer a young person is with us, the greater opportunity we have for impact. So aspirational development structures can supercharge engagement of young people, and surely this could be leveraged to further expand effective youth provision for our young people in this country. So in summary, the findings from My LegaSea clearly evidence for the first time the positive long-term impact of youth work. They clearly evidence that structured, uniformed youth work, such as Sea Cadets, is highly effective in building young people for their futures, again, long-term. And in doing so, My LegaSea shows how structured and uniformed youth work benefits the wider community, leverages the power of volunteering, and harnesses aspirational structures to supercharge engagement. Now, we all know that young people were already facing a challenging and changing world. The current pandemic has multiplied this tenfold. But we equally know that life is hard, isn't it? And therefore, we can't continually shield our young people from everything that goes on. So as we look at how we respond to COVID as a society, now is the time for us together, the youth sector, government and employers, armed with this irrefutable evidence, to urgently invest in volunteer-delivered structured youth work for every young person that wants it, ensuring we build our youth for the future through a venture that launches them for life. Now, in a moment, we're going to have a question and answer period. But first, if after all of this, you're still in any doubt of the positive type this positive type of youth work, watch this video about the resilience of young people through Sea Cadets during the current pandemic.
My regular day would be like, I would just wake up quite late at like maybe 1, and then I would take a shower and all that, and then I would just go on my phone for the whole day.
It was kind of boring, like I couldn't go out a lot, but then like later on I started to like ride my bike, just exercising around. That's it pretty much. I've been doing that every day. I was meant to get my rank, I was meant to be ranked up to able cadet, but I couldn't be doing it because of the lockdown, so.
I am a carer for my brother, and sort of juggling stuff with him, his needs, as well as me being able to finish stuff. It's sort of a trade-off, really. You don't have school, but you kind of have to look after your brother, which is where reality hit. It was just it was still a massive shock to me. The fact that I went from, you know, a class of 30 to staying at home for 6 months.
During lockdown for Virtual Sea Cadets, I did the first aid intermediate booklet, and I did a meteorology course, as well as participating in the parade night. I also did maths at sea and writing at sea, which helped with my school, and this meant that work was easier.
So during Virtual Sea Cadets, I attended many of our evenings that we hosted as a unit, which was very nice. We came together to like celebrate people's achievements over lockdown and just to see each other again and catch up. I also started my navigation intermediate course, which it's been quite interesting doing it at home, which has been a good experience to learn new things.
Yeah, the online stuff has helped and has really just had a massive impact on where I'm going. I did my level 3 mechanical engineering, which isn't an outside qualification yet, but can progress to an outside qualification.
I got to plan and teach 2 lessons to some younger cadets, which was a first, and it was a really unique experience to be able to do it over a virtual lesson as well. And I'm really glad that I did get that opportunity, because it also showed me that it was a lot harder to do it over a computer screen, but it still gave me that experience. It gave me some more confidence through that.
I like to think I'm very independent, but I depend on people being there for me, and a lot of my friends are in Sea Cadets, and it really did kind of help the fact that I did have those friends who had the same mindset as me, who kind of thought the same way as me. To have those people just having a message sent to me saying, oh, I'm still here for you, you know, do you want to call or something, just having that connection with people.
I still felt connected because we were all there generally, and it was quite fun, and it gave me something to look forward to during the weekdays.
Coming back to Sea Cadets is really nice actually, because since we've been so long in lockdown, it's also nice to see all my friends.
I was like very happy because like I actually get to do something for once and actually see my friends again. So yeah, I felt satisfied afterwards.
As we went back into the unit again, we were able to do loads of activities, and we got to talk to each other again and like really properly, and I feel like it was a lot closer at the unit than it was virtually.
I'm happy to be back because of seeing my friends again, and just talking to them and doing activities. Like learning online is quite hard, and coming back here just makes it feel much better.
When I came back, I was a bit like different. It felt really weird to be back on a boat because I haven't been on for a couple months, and it was really weird going back, but I enjoyed it a lot.
I'm pretty confident coming back to the unit. I know that everyone here will be safe. Our unit has put in loads of great precautions to keep everyone safe, and so I know that as long as we keep staying safe, keeping our distance, wearing our masks, we can keep everyone safe, and I don't feel worried about that.
You can't have too much of a good thing. You know how good it is to be in person with people and meeting people, even though they might be quite far away, making that effort, because there's still so many things in Sea Cadets. I've been in for so long, but there's still so many things that I haven't done and I would really like to do. It just all depends on what happens really in the future. But getting back to the unit, you know, 2 steps forward, 1 step out is still 1 step forward. So, you know, that's coming back to the unit. You know, we're still socially distanced, but we're still back at the unit. So that's it. I can't really explain that anymore. But being at the unit it's good. It is really good.
Ladies and gentlemen, at this point, I hope you have found the presentations, accounts and videos an affirmation or a revelation. Now an opportunity to pose what questions you might have of the study, the report, the youth sector and Sea Cadets. Our panel of experts are Anna Spencer, the lead researcher and author, Mr. Tony Jeffs, the leading academic in the field of youth work, who reviewed and advised throughout the study, Martin Coles, our chief executive, and Veronica Nair, Sea Cadets Director of Policy and Youth and Young People Support. To ask a question, please click on the Q&A tab to the right of your screen and click on the round plus symbol. You should then be able to type and submit your questions, which I shall pose to the panel as best I can. We're a large audience today, so please do bear with me should a number of questions begin to fly in. We already have a question, so I will direct this to Tony Jeff. Tony, beyond structured and uniform youth work, might these findings relate to youth work more widely, for example, youth clubs? Perhaps less structured youth work is also valuable for many young people.
It says unmuted, thank you. It does in a sense, but mostly it paints the message is that the bulk of statutory youth work and recreational leisure-based youth work has really got it wrong, and that in a sense faith-based and aspirational youth work similar to the Sea Cadets have got it right. The problem is that the difficulty is that the bulk of mainstream youth work is problem focused rather than aspirational. It's recreational rather than directed. And also it tends to work with a far younger age group than faith-based organisations and the Sea Cadets. So therefore it tends to also be lacking a future orientation. Finally, I think there's another enormous difference, and that is that the sustained relationship between young people and adults, and also the proportion of adults to young people that have encountered in the Sea Cadets, but also in faith-based organisations, mean that there are rich opportunities for learning, and also for the encountering of role models who offer young people a vision of what they might be rather than merely what they are. And it doesn't confirm their present self, but offers something to aim for and to aspire to. So therefore I think, yes, it does speak to the rest of the youth organisations and the youth work sector. But I think really the message it sends out is they need to seriously consider where they're going wrong and where organisations like the Sea Cadets, and I wish to reiterate the faith-based organisations, tend to be getting it right. And that's the message that I think this research really sends out.
Thank you very much. A question for Anna Spencer. First of all, some positive feedback for you. An excellent presentation, Anna. Clear, articulate, informative, generally very well presented. Were you by any chance a Sea Cadet?
I wasn't a Sea Cadet, so I came to this research with fresh eyes, and I heard from people who were in it.
Very independent.
Yes, completely independent in that sense. And my understanding was opened up. I didn't know much about the internal workings and the emphasis and the focus of structured youth work through Sea Cadets and other cadet organisations. And as a youth worker who has worked with young people over several years, it did challenge some of my previous ideas about the whole round of the youth work offer. And I think that what we need to remember going forward is different young people need different interventions, different points of connection and different relationships. And what for me was really strong through this research is the importance of celebrating the unique contribution of the Sea Cadets, because it's affiliated to the Navy, but it's also a very forward-looking youth organisation. So it balances this rich tradition and rich history of evidentially proven practice with a forward gaze that looks at the ever-changing world around young people and how they can be responsive to young people whilst also not wavering in their commitment and understanding of what has served them well, what has worked well, and what these thousands of people have said made a difference in their lives. So I think it is important to look at all the different things we can offer to young people, but not to, if you're someone who's listening to this from a non-cadet background, I would just challenge you to read the report and hold some of your preconceptions to one side for a second and listen to the first-hand accounts from the people who've gone through the experience.
Thank you. Next question. With the diversity of the UK shifting, how will Sea Cadets position itself to be a welcoming organisation to continue its work of empowering young people? And I wonder if that's a question for Veronica Nair.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a very interesting question, and I'm also glad that Anna said that despite our long history and real rootedness in the customs and traditions of the Royal Navy, we're an ambitious modern youth charity. We are based in communities across the UK, and those communities are changing, and they're changing fast. And we are going to change with that. It's an area we're very aware of. We have cadets and we have volunteers from all walks of life. That includes, all the protected characteristics, but also BAME, young people with disabilities. We've got really healthy amounts of looked after young people and young people who are young carers. But it is for our next strategy development, it's one of our key areas to really look critically of how well we are doing in all the diversity areas and what we can do more.
Thank you, Veronica. Next question. With those from neglected communities being greatly impacted by COVID, will the Sea Cadets be targeting them as a priority following a study like this? I think, Martin, would you like to answer that?
Yes, very happy to. I think it's important to start by saying that actually the Sea Cadets is extremely well represented across the UK in actually a large number of those areas which are particularly challenged demographically and challenged by COVID. So we're already in the heartlands of those communities. And therefore, we will be looking to regenerate Sea Cadets within those areas and inspire more young people to join us, and also to inspire more volunteers, which is the absolute prerequisite to join us. So I would say actually we're already there. About 62% of our young people by home address are in a demographically challenged location. That's perhaps the inverse of many other youth organisations and perhaps what people might imagine. So we're already there, and we will continue to work within those communities and to continue to expand.
Thank you, Martin. Anna, was the research able to pull out any specific mental health benefits to children and young people being a part of Sea Cadets?
Definitely. I think in my talk I talked about resilience, relationships, stability, and opportunities to push and challenge yourself. So I think there's two ways of looking at this. One is about being in a healthy relationship context with peers and with adults that models a balanced and healthy kind of mental equilibrium and well-being in life. But then there's also the specific experiences that a young people goes through navigating relationship with peers, potentially in quite pressured or challenging environments. If you're at sea and things get a bit hairy, you've got to work together. You have to find out how you respond under that pressure and in those moments where you're not quite sure how you're going to show up. So it allows young people the opportunity to explore more of who they are in environments and opportunities that they may not get elsewhere. But I think it's looking at that thing in the round again, is that the balance of those two things is it's a space where young people can find their best selves, but it's also a place where if young people are finding parts of themselves that they're not yet comfortable with or they don't yet understand, it's safe for them to push the boundaries of that and try things out. I think one of the things that was really powerful and may not be something that other people are familiar with is that it's an environment where young people whose identity might not conform to a very mainstream stereotype can legitimately be themselves. So, young women speaking about kind of their identity, and particularly members of the queer community who may not particularly want to label themselves as any particular demographic or bracket, but they were, cadet, they were able cadet this, or they were leading hand that. They had a stability around them that meant that identity formation and mental well-being was held in a safe and supportive environment. So yes, but I mean, I can't do justice to all the stories today, but 100% yes.
Can I just add something there, which sort of links what Anna's just said so excellently against what I was talking about in terms of the issue of supporting young people out of COVID. One of the initiatives that we commenced just prior to COVID was something called On the Water, which targets hard to reach young people. So those young people who wouldn't normally look to access, they wouldn't think that they could get on the water. They wouldn't think that they are relevant to our types of organisations, be it whatever challenges they've got. That was immensely successful work in engaging young people in free activity on the water during the summer of 2019, thanks to the support of Stelios Philanthropic Foundation and the Gosling Foundation and others. And actually, we are supercharging that initiative from this summer and seeking to engage hard to reach young people, 600 in each location in London, Liverpool and Birmingham, in order to really open up the opportunities, and alongside that to seek to open up opportunities for some, if they want to go on and join Sea Cadets thereafter. So we're not just focusing on those who walk through the door, we are seeking to engage absolutely the hard to reach.
Thank you both. We've reached the 12 o'clock mark for the event. However, as we have several more questions, I propose we continue. For those not able to stay on with us, there will be a recording of the event made available online and emailed to everybody that was participating today. So the next question says as such: I was briefing a group of employers last night regarding current defence issues. The topic of cadets was raised, and a number of employers said that they wanted to learn more about the organizations. Do you have any plans to deploy the results of this study further afield? Veronica, would you like to start off?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, an email might have already landed in your inbox, because today for us is really only the start. We have already set up a dedicated web page where both the full research reports with all the lovely stories that Anna was describing are displayed. I urge you to go and read it, but also a shorter highlights document summarizing the points for the youth sector and government, local and national, that Martin has outlined. For us, we're really in a position as an organization where we have invested and built up a policy and insight function in-house. We are putting a lot of effort into being able to measure and talk about the short-term impact of what cadets get out of being a cadet while they're with us, but now with this study really proving what we have always known, and being able to speak to stakeholders and hopefully contribute to the discourse in a really challenging world for young people in the UK today and for many years to come. So today is also an invitation to stakeholders to get in touch with us after the event and keep the conversation going. So yes, this is only the start of hopefully making sure some of the messages you've been hearing today about resilience, about the importance of letting young people take risks in a controlled environment, about that link between what happens in a young person, how that transitions you into the adult world and employment opportunities. All of that we will explore further and are looking forward to speaking to stakeholders, including employers, because it's going to be a very challenging employment market situation for young people coming out of this pandemic.
Thank you. We have a related question, but asking if we plan on sharing this research with our counterparts in the other cadet forces. Is that something we have planned to do?
Absolutely. Indeed, they were all invited to this event. I don't know if they're with us or not, but they certainly will be getting the copy of the research. Indeed, we invited, and I don't know who's with us today, we invited all relevant, related, structured youth organisations to the event, and we will be providing them with the survey results.
Thank you. Another question for Anna. Anna, do you know out of the study how many Sea Cadets returned at a later stage in their lives to volunteer within either the youth sector or specifically Sea Cadets?
You're testing my knowledge. I can't remember the exact to the number percentage, but it is about 50% of the research participants did and 50 didn't, which was really important to us because we wanted to have that story of people who have travelled with the organisation over a long period of time. But we were also interested in people who had a meaningful experience in Sea Cadets as a young person, but then went off and lived a life that may have been quite different to what people perceive to be the trajectory of a former Sea Cadet. So one of my favourite stories was someone from Northern Ireland who works in the theatre industry. He's a technician, and he specifically attributes the rope work that he learned as a Sea Cadet to his job now when he rigs large-scale theatrical productions. So for me, I think it's that balance of people who have been fundamentally connected to the organisation throughout their life. It's been a through line, either with the established organisation or through ongoing friendships with their peers that they made in cadets and then carried on. But then also for people who had a profound experience at a particular period in their life, that even though they've not necessarily had a formal ongoing connection, it is something that has remained with them throughout their adult years.
And for Tony, do you think with the knowledge you have that is common across the youth sector, or do you think that what we've seen from the study is any different?
It's radically different. That sort of percentage of lifelong affiliation or involvement and engagement is simply not encountered within the bulk of provision. And I think that's one of the great strengths of an organisation like the Sea Cadets, that it offers a horizon for which young people can aspire to, can head towards, rather than simply a single one-off experience or a short-term encounter. So no, it does occur in certain organisations. Jewish youth organisations, for example, have a very high engagement of ex-members who continue to be involved. But again, there's a uniqueness about that, and there's a uniqueness about the Sea Cadets, and I suspect the other cadet organisations. Most other youth organisations, youth provision today is almost on a customer pay-as-you-go basis, with short time limited involvement, and usually very few actually currently retain any affiliation beyond the age of 13 or 14. And so what this makes is the Sea Cadets really quite remarkable and exceptional. Well, hang on, I've got to correct that exceptional. I think the cadet organisations and some of the faith-based organisations are really quite unique within the sector in achieving this.
Thank you both. I think maybe this is a question for Martin. Do you feel this report will help unlock much needed funding to help young people avoid risky behaviours by being involved in structured community-based youth organisations?
I hope so, and it should do. And I don't just mean for Sea Cadets, I mean for structured youth organisations as a whole. As I said in my closing remarks, I think this is irrefutable evidence. And I am really keen that we work together with the youth sector, together with employers, and indeed together with government to find a way to use the model to support young people for the future, giving them a positive solution, giving them the ability to cope with their futures, to be ready for their futures as we come out of the pandemic. So I'm hugely, this is just the start today, as far as I see it. This is a really important piece of research which we need to use across the sector to engage more young people and give more young people the opportunity, that those young people that want it.
A question for Veronica, I think. How has Sea Cadets been able to respond to the pandemic of late and provide cadets with the same type of life-changing experiences that they've had for so many years?
Thank you. Yes, I mean, the important thing to say is Sea Cadets never stopped. The pandemic didn't stop us. We had to think on our feet, we had to innovate quickly, and we launched a virtual Sea Cadets offer within, well, I want to say days. I think it's been days. So it's challenged us all. Our volunteers have been absolutely fantastic, making sure they keep engaging our cadets week in, week out, virtually when we had to. That was supported with digital grants for cadets and families who would not have been able to access our virtual offer because we found that is very important. But also we have been really successful between the lockdown opening up again to support all our units to prepare to come back to face-to-face activity in a COVID secure way. Done a lot of work, and just before Christmas we had 75% of our units back delivering face-to-face in a safe way. Some outdoors because Sea Cadets don't mind bad weather, some indoors in a COVID secure way, and we got continue doing that. Sea Cadets will continue lockdown, lifting of restrictions. It's important that we are the constant in young people's life, especially during these challenging times.
Thank you. We've had a few questions about Mrs. May, so I think for you, Martin, put simply, would people like Mrs. May be able to inject this key work into central government on our behalf as they look to overcome the inevitable post-COVID issues?
Well, look, she's headlined this report, so I think she's already done it. And of course, we'll be delighted to work with Mrs. May and indeed others across influences across government over the coming weeks. And we will do so. But, you know, the report, as I say, speaks for itself, is irrefutable in terms of the evidence. So I'm quite sure. But it's fantastic to have people like Mrs. May who recognise the value of what we do and actually volunteers. She's the president of Maidenhead Sea Cadets, so she's seen it for herself.
Thank you. I think another question for Veronica, actually. The question is, I am in the Royal Navy, currently assigned to one of the area engagement teams. we have been providing activities and insight into service life in the Royal Navy to Sea Cadets units. Do you see this as an important element to grow as part of the Sea Cadets transformation?
Yes, absolutely, and I hope we're already working with you. Our cadets love to have the opportunity to see, what really happens in the Royal Navy, but also in the Merchant Navy, in the wider maritime sector. And another focus for us is just to open it up to our cadets for all employment opportunities. One thing that hasn't come up today yet is that this year, timely, we actually launched our digital Sea Cadets portal. This is Sea Cadets experience for every young person in the palm of their hands. They can track their progress and their learning journey, but more importantly, also look up career pathways and therefore be inspired what they might want to do next. So yeah, it's a really important element for us. Also, Martin mentioned it at the beginning, Sea Cadets is the one side, but we are the Marine Society and Sea Cadets. We're also focusing on really bringing those two charities closer together, a lifelong journey for young people to either keep volunteering with us or, go into the maritime sector, be supported there, or anywhere else they might want to go. But yes, the links to the Royal Navy and everything the Royal Navy has to offer, and being able to really experientially show that to our cadets is hugely important.
And I think it's worth saying that actually being able to do that virtually over the last few months has really massively increased the number of young people that we've been able to engage in sessions around careers and also around parts of the Royal Navy. We've had webinars from admirals. We've had visits to ships. And of course, we've had the careers information, all fantastic information and engagement for our young people about the organisation that they've sort of joined. They've joined the family of, and they want to know about what's going on. So it's a brilliant way of doing it. It's a really effective way of getting very large numbers involved. So thank you if you have been engaged in any of that virtual, and thank you to the RN for their huge support in inventiveness in helping us develop these things.
I think a real highlight for me was the Royal Navy Submariners supporting cadets through lockdown with online virtual sessions on dealing with isolation. I think that went down very well. A final question, I think, for Anna. Anna, this might be another difficult one for you, but we'll throw it at you anyways. In the research, were any control groups used, such as people who had participated in other youth organizations, or those with similar backgrounds to participants but with a different life experience?
Thank you. It's actually quite easy to answer because anyone who's been involved in any form of evaluation will recognise that the scope of this and the investment made by Sea Cadets is major. So in order to get the point of the level of information about the Sea Cadets experience is unparalleled. So it wasn't within the scope of a one-year research project to do justice to another organisation. But my understanding and my involvement hopefully is that this will inspire other organisations to do what Sea Cadets have done, which was spend their own money recognising the importance of this kind of evidence to tell a more comprehensive story about their work. So, there's other organisations who can pick up this baton. They can take the same approach. They can do a comprehensive survey. They can reach out to former members. Or perhaps there's someone watching or someone who knows someone who wants to work with Sea Cadets to do this across other structured youth work or to do this with other contexts, because I think that's invaluable insight. And we have an ambition and an appetite for that. But I can say for all members of the team that we pushed ourselves to get this through. Financially, it was a big investment from Sea Cadets that shows their commitment to genuine evidence. But it also shows their genuine commitment to quality work for young people, that they weren't just buying into their own their own rhetoric. They actually gave me the chance to ask questions and find out answers without coming with an agenda of my own. So not yet, but we would be delighted, I would be delighted to be part of something like that going forward, because I think this can only be the beginning of a journey of really committing to long-term stories of impact that inform future long-term commitments to young people.
Thank you, Anna. Well, ladies and gentlemen, at this point, throughout the course of this event, you should have received an email with the reports. You will soon receive another email with a survey. We would appreciate it greatly if you could provide us some feedback, even some information on what you would like to know more of, and we could plan future events. And I would like to thank you all for your time in joining us today. Martin, would you like to take a moment to say any last words, any closing remarks?
I'd just like to thank everybody who's been involved in this powerful piece of research. It is, I believe, something that is not just of relevance to Sea Cadets, but it's of relevance to the whole of the structure of the youth sector. And it shouts loud about the value of structured youth work. We would be really keen to work with anybody in any organisation, government or employers, as to how we could leverage this for young people in the UK, or indeed to extend that evidence for the future. So can I just say thank you for everybody who was involved, and thank you to all of you for joining us today.